Smut, erotica, spice, whatever you want to call it, is something very popular that we put into our books. It is a human thing, but does it belong in YA? Let's discuss. But before we get started, hi, what's up? I'm Emily. Welcome to my channel, and I make bookish content here on YouTube. If you like my little microphone, I'm going to try something different and see if it changes the audio quality of my videos at all. So let me know if this is horrible for you. This is probably going to be the most controversial video that I've done. Maybe not, I'm not really sure. We are going to talk about something slightly controversial, which is, does spice or smut belong in YA fiction? This is a video I've been wanting to make for a long time. I have a lot of complex thoughts on this. It's a very nuanced discussion. There's several layers to it. I don't know if I'll get to all of it. I might not. We'll see. Obviously, if you have any thoughts about this, please share with me in the comments. I love having conversations about these things. I think it's important to openly discuss these topics as part of the bookish community. As always, I'm going to have some links in the description for further reading if this is something you want to continue looking into yourself, or if you want to see things that I've been reading about. So let's talk about YA. What is YA? YA stands for young adult. It is an age category. It spans from ages 12 to 18. That is a very drastic age range. 12-year-olds and 18-year-olds are nowhere close to the same range in life. They're having vastly different experiences in life. But as a whole, that is what that age category is for. YA is not a genre. I know that I used to use those two terms interchangeably. They're different. YA is not a genre. It is an age category, much like middle grade or children's books. Some people say that YA actually only spans from 14 to 18 or from 12 to 16. That's just, I don't know what to tell you. People are just going to say different things. So what we can understand is that YA is predominantly teenage years prior to being an adult, high school. Like, that's the age range we're talking about here. So I couldn't get any super recent numbers, and I don't know why, but from what I could find is that back in 2021, they did a survey that over 55% of young adult readers were adults. So we're talking about over 18, like predominantly 20s and 30-year-olds. But even more interestingly is that back in 2018, this number was like 70%. That's a really high number of like adults reading fiction that is being written for teenagers. And that is not to say that adults shouldn't read YA, because I love YA. It's my favorite age category, but that's just something to have in the back of your mind when we talk about this. And if you look up YA books on TikTok, you will see that it is predominantly adult females who are reading and talking about and leading the discussions about these books. My microphone is green now. Look at that. To talk a little bit further about the kinds of people who are reading these books, the queer community, the LGBTQ community, has also really latched onto the YA fiction as well. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And I'm going to talk about them briefly because I think they're really important to discuss. YA books predominantly revolve around themes of identity, coming of age, learning about the world, figuring out where you fit in the world. And for a lot of LGBT people, they can relate to that. And a lot of queer people also were bullied in high school or were in the closet and didn't get to have these kinds of experiences when they were teenagers. And so reading YA fiction, especially if it's about LGBT characters, is a way to kind of live vicariously through that book and relive those high school years that were maybe kind of taken away from them. YA books are comforting, they're fun, they're fast paced, can get dark, they can cover harsh topics, but not in the way and not in the sort of harsh reality that a lot of adult books kind of lend themselves to. We can tackle subjects of mental health, but maybe we don't have a firsthand experience in the book watching something horrible happen to people due to their mental health. Do you get what I'm saying? It's padded. We talk about these things, we express them, they're there, but it's not the full harsh adult reality. And sometimes that's nice. Sometimes that's all you want. YA is so fun and easy to read. It's those kinds of books that you can kind of shut your brain off to and just enjoy because they're enjoyable books. Authors like Casey McQuiston, for example, who are writing LGBT books, are having a hard time with their publishers to figure out where their books belong. Casey McQuiston is the author of several books like I Kiss Shara Wheeler, One Last Stop, and Red, White, and Royal Blue. Casey McQuiston is not the only author who has had these kinds of issues, but I'm going to just use them as an example because basically these characters are in the 18, 19-year-old range. So we're in kind of that teenage range still. We're on like the cusp of like being past it. And these books explore very similar themes of identity, coming of age, figuring out who you are as a young full-fledged adult in the world. You're no longer in high school. You're having experiences that you've never had before, but these books can contain explicit material in them. Now, that is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I don't want this video to be like I'm saying that we shouldn't have sex in books or that we shouldn't be talking about these things or that teenagers can't talk about these things. I don't want you to think that that's where I'm coming from. It's just that with the age category going as low as 12 years old, we do need to like have some sort of idea in the back of our mind where the line of appropriateness is in terms of these things, but I will get to that. Other authors, very famously Sarah J. Maas, her books A Court of Thorns and Roses and her Throne of Glass series have also been pushed into the YA category by her publisher. Again, there's a lot of reasons that this could be. We can talk about how women fantasy authors tend to get pushed into YA because they think it won't sell in adult fantasy because that is largely where a lot of male readers read and they don't want to read women authors. We could talk about a lot of things that go into this, but the crux of the issue is that these books contain multiple very explicit sexual scenes in them, and they are being shoved into a category that includes 12 and 13-year-olds. Now, are these the darkest, smuttiest, most spicy books out on the market? Absolutely not. Not by a long shot. Nor do I think that teenagers don't know what sex is. Like, I'm not stupid. I am in my 20s. I was a teenager not that long ago. Like, you're not dumb. They're not dumb. But I do think this is bleeding into a larger issue as a whole, which I will get to now. Yes, the new adult age category. I love new adult as an age category. I love it. I might love it as much, if not more than YA, if publishers would just use it. So if you don't know what the new adult age category is, that is the age category of like 18, 19 to 29, 30. These protagonists tend to be somewhere in their 20s or 18 or 19, like I said. And the themes in these books are often very, very similar to what we see in YA. However, we get a lot more adult situations. So, we can lend things to be a bit darker. There are usually several sexually explicit scenes. Yeah, St. Martin's Press coined this term back, I think, in like 2009, but a lot of publishing companies did not really catch on to it. And I think literally up until the pandemic, I didn't even know it was a thing. A lot of them kind of said it was some sort of like marketing scheme to just sell more books, sell different books. I really don't think that that's what it is. I guess you could argue that, but I just disagree with that statement. And a lot of publishing houses also think that there just isn't a lot of readership in that age range, which I feel like Book Talk has proven that is just like not the case. And I do think that that's why NA or new adult is becoming more and more popularized. I do think that it is something that is going to continue to grow, but it's just interesting to me that like it took that long. And since this category has kind of become more and more relevant, a lot of the books that I've mentioned already have kind of been pushed into this new adult category. But if you go to like any library or bookstore or whatever, they normally don't have a new adult section in their stores. And you will see those books in the YA section next to like Twilight and Percy Jackson. Okay, so we've kind of talked about some examples, what YA is, what NA is, whatever. So let's talk about the main point in this video that I want to talk about, and that is spice, smut in YA. What we are seeing as a whole is that in YA fiction that is being published, I feel like there's this trend that the protagonists are now at the upper end of the age range. So we're not getting so many YA books about 14, 15, 16-year-olds. We're getting a lot of YA books about 17, 18, 19-year-olds. So we're not getting as much of like a range, I feel like. These ages of 17, 18, 19 tend to lend themselves to much more adult situations because they're, if they're not an adult already at 18, they're almost an adult and they're experiencing and exploring their bodies and relationships. And I feel like normally a lot of these books would be pushed into a new adult section. However, like I said, since there isn't really a new adult section in a lot of these spaces, and there is a huge adult readership for YA, these books are just being published into the YA section. Instead of aging up the characters just 1 or 2 years and putting them in college, we're having 17-year-olds in these same situations and writing about them in the same way that we would in an NA book. And I think the difference comes down to what expectations you have when reading a book in this age category. When you pick up a new adult book, you don't necessarily expect there to be sex or smut in it, but it's not unexpected. It doesn't take you by surprise if these characters have sex. Most of them are in their 20s, they've had lives up until this point. I've read new adult books where the character's 26 and is married and divorced. They've lived a life beyond high school. And it makes sense that these characters are having these sorts of experiences. And depending on the genre, yes, there may be one or more very sexually explicit scenes. Now, there's nothing wrong with adults reading YA fiction. However, when I read YA fiction, I have a set expectation that there will not be spice or smut in these books. And that is different than having sex in a book. And I will get to that. With this set expectation, I have the expectation that I'm not going to have to have firsthand experience of watching two teenagers have sex, and certainly not for my own enjoyment. I've already said this a couple times, but I'll get into it now. This is different than just having sex in a book. And I feel like that's the biggest reply when someone says there shouldn't be smut in YA, is that they're like, teenagers know what sex is. Teenagers are having sex. And it's like, yeah, duh, okay. Why can't this be in books? And I just want to say, at least in my opinion, my definition of the word, there is a difference between having sex in a book and writing smut for teenagers in a book. There's a difference between a fade to black sex scene, a 3 to 4 page explicit description of two teenagers, sometimes underage teenagers, having sex. And let's not get into how harmful and inappropriate some of these relationships can be. And they're not great examples for literal children who are picking up this book. I mean, again, 12 to 18. That is such a wide age range. And we don't want to promote unhealthy relationships with other people and teenagers' bodies. Teens are going to explore their sexuality no matter what, but don't we as a society have a sort of responsibility to help them in a way when we're providing this to them? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Because books can also help teach about consent and conversations that teenagers should be having about these kinds of situations, not whatever is happening in Colleen Hoover's books. I mean, this age category goes all the way down to 12 years old. And let's not forget about why people read smut in the first place. I know what some of you do with those books. You can't hide from me. So, what's the solution? What am I proposing here? Why am I talking about this? It doesn't matter, whatever you want to say. I hear you in the back of my head. I don't know if there's a fully, functional way to solve this. The solution that I would bring forth is to break books down into categories the way that we do video games and movies. If a book contains sexual, explicit, smutty content, I feel like on the title page, copyright page somewhere, in that area of the book, there should be I don't want to say warning. You don't need like a warning, right? But like a disclaimer or something like that. That is like, this book contains blah, 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 blah. You could put a specific colored dot somewhere that just says, yep, this is for mature 17 and up. Like something like that. I feel like would go a long ways, at least for readers to know what they're getting into before starting a book. So instead of having ACOTAR next to Percy Jackson or To All the Boys I Loved Before, it could have like a 17 and up marking, and then it's like in its own little part so that it's distinguished from these other books. Like, I'm sorry, there's no reason a 13 or 14-year-old should be able to go into the YA section and pick up Icebreaker thinking that it looks like a cute romance and then going home and being like, what did I just read? Because this book has such a cute cover and absolutely no warning whatsoever what is happening on the pages inside of this book. I mean, look at it. And I looked online and it says 14 and up on this book, but then everyone else commenting on it is like, no, this is 18 and up, 18 and up, 18 and up. And I'm like, which is it? And you know what? That brings me to my next thing, is that publishing houses look. I love the romance covers. I think they're really cute. I love the colors. It makes it so aesthetically pleasing on your bookshelf. But there is no way in hell that like I'm picking up a book off the romance shelf and like knowing if there is sex or not in this book. Publishing houses will put like the cutest Lisa Frank looking illustration of a cute couple like holding hands flirtatiously, and then inside will be like the darkest, deepest, like nastiest, kinky smut ever. And I hate to say it, but a lot of these covers could easily be confused for a book in the YA section. And I get it, they're cute. No one wants to see like a half-naked person on their cover like when you're riding the train on your commute to work. Like, I get it. We want like subtle romance covers because people people don't need to see that or whatever, but like it's kind of crazy just how similar some of these books look to each other. Like if you saw these two books in the store and I told you that one of them was YA and had no spice in it at all and the other one had like several explicit sexual scenes, like could you tell me which one is which? How about now? Without knowing anything about them. Like, it's so crazy how similar they look. All of this to say, I think we should care about what teenagers are consuming because BookTok and influencers are really just pushing this stuff out left and right. I'm not saying we block teenagers from it at all. I know what it's like to be 17. I know what it's like to be 16, 15. But I think a lot of other Tumblr unsupervised children in the 20s and 30s can give you firsthand experience of like what unsupervised internet can do to someone. And just because it's a book doesn't mean that it's like better in some way. It has like the same effect on people. Like there's some pretty crazy fanfic out there that people have read that have like messed them up for life. And also we're seeing this trend of kids maturing so fast. I mean, have you guys seen the Gen Alpha influencers? It's like crazy out there. These kids are not having a chance to be kids and awkward teenagers. They're just like jumping right first into it. And if like some of this is their only experience with like what sex is like, they're going to have some pretty wild expectations that are just unachievable and they're not going to understand like consent or anything like that. We're all just trying to figure ourselves out. And I feel like we should just help in that regard. And you by no means need to agree with me on this. I totally know that this is like kind of controversial. So but if you have thoughts on this that you want to share with me, please let me know down in the comments. I would love to have a conversation with you about it. I hope that this opens conversations up in the future. I don't know if I got to everything I wanted to talk about. I think I did. I don't know. But like, yeah. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it this far, if you enjoyed, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one.